Greetings, my fellow free blood sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting live from the beautiful land of enchantment, which is also known as New Mexico. And today's date is Tuesday, November 1st, 2016. Hopefully everyone had a safe Halloween out there. And we all know about All Saints Day too. Well, just internet went out, so I had to do a little winging it. So I'm going to be talking to some topics on what's around the world and so forth. Mostly current events and advice on if you're an attorney. I haven't done anything from findlaw.com in a long time, and I'm like, wait a minute, let me just do that. It's been a while, so yeah. Of course, we're all talking about. Looks like they're still doing the no-fly zone at the Dakota pipeline. Plus, they were right because there was an explosion last night around Shelby County in Alabama, and according to the report, it was built in 1965, so it was like 50 years old. That pipe was, and look what happened. So you could say the protesters and the Native Americans, the Sioux tribe, they were absolutely correct. It can ruin the environment and so forth, and explosions and polluting the waters. So you can't blame them, and I support their cause. And another thing I still have a bone to pick with, when I still see some of these folks is posting their video and of course the portrait about the whole thing that happened in Oregon, and try to compare that to what's going on in Dakotas, and they call it white privilege and all that. I'm like, you know what, you folks, you're still trolling. Stop trolling for attention. You are a complete distraction. I don't know why you're trying to compare these two. The truth of the matter is, they went to trial and found not guilty. Yeah, they had arms to be safe. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a man who's pro self-defense, pro firearms myself. I could address that. And furthermore, you should be aligning with them instead of talking smack. It's completely inapplicable. When you're going to get your heads out of your rectums? As far as I'm concerned, there's bigger fish to fry, and all you're doing is addressing baseless pettiness. That's all it is. Baseless, unmeritable, null and void. That's what I don't like. And I did my rant on that a while back, including Jill Stein, which, like I said, I'm not condemning, but you gotta observe everything thoroughly to make a wise decision, or, other words, put your viewpoints in. Please. I'm a man that supporting the cause for both sides, because look what happened with that thing when they took over the thing that happened in Oregon. Hey, property rights. People being violated. It doesn't matter. Look what happened with the protesters at the Sioux Standing Rock. Okay, same thing. I'm sorry. I know life is a few different areas, but the truth of the matter is that area for them is sacred, and I'm not condemning their actions. I am 100% supporting it. And everyone has to look at that, because the truth of the matter is there's bigger fish to fry, or bigger entities to focus on, because they want us divided so they can conquer every single one of us. So you better think really well. And that's how I see things. I'm pretty damn open about this. It's called domino effect, my friends. If you don't like what I said, too bad. I could care less. Don't listen to me ever again. That's your decision if you're going to have that mindset. Because as far as I'm concerned, you're contaminating space. And I say that in good faith. All right. Well, I'm not going to be addressing anything right now on those areas. Plus, of course, a lot of vote frauds going on. There was even a claim from Fox News, which I got from Next News Network, talking about the whole search warrant for Anthony Weiner. And according to them from Fox News, what they got was considered child pornography in his computer. I don't know how authentic is that, but I'll tell you one thing: if it's true, and they got the ammunition to collect the ammunition, heads are going to be rolling. So yes, everyone's focusing on the elections, which is understandable, but try not to get too caught up on it because a lot of incidences are happening right in front of our eyes, and that's what you gotta do. Keep everything in the balance factor, okay? So enough of that. My little rant there. All right, first thing I'm going to be addressing came from the New America, and this was entitled "Whistleblower Exposes UN Culture of Corruption," and this is by Alex Newman. As it says here, when she stumbled across massive corruption and made up statistics in her job at the United Nations, Rasa Rara knew she needed to act. But when she tried to blow the whistle, she was viciously attacked, publicly humiliated, threatened, intimidated, and more. Unfortunately, though, as Rara explains in her new book, "UNsilenced: Unmasking the United Nations Culture of Cover-Ups, Corruption, and Impunity," you get it on Amazon.com. Her case is far from unique. In fact, the corruption of lawlessness across the UN appears to be systemic. In some cases described in the book and the pages of the New American magazine makes the scandal she exposed and the retaliation she suffered seem mild by comparison. Indeed, her book, she actually spent very little time dwelling on her own case, but delves instead into some of the many other known and unknown scandals to rock the global organization. Perhaps the most grotesque whistleblower-related story in recent memory surrounds the now infamous case of Anders Kompass, the UN human rights official who exposed child rape by peacekeeping troops in Africa. And there's a website for that, link for that, you can check it out. After the UN refused to act on it, but the book is filled with startling examples of corruption, management, and more, ranging from brazen theft of taxpayer money to the sexual abuse and exploitation of children by UN peace troops. Just quotes from the UN whistleblowers exposing the putrid UN culture of impunity make the book worth reading. Apparently, the UN did not want a culture of snitches, as a whistleblower put it. It got so bad that in 2015, Roar explains, a coalition of 9 UN whistleblowers got together to raise the matter with the UN General Ban Ki-moon. Each of us has blown the whistle on serious wrongdoing, gross misconduct, and even criminal acts at the United Nations. The group wrote in the letter, which is quoted in the book, our collective experience of reporting misconduct in the UN covers sexual exploitation, abuse of power, corruption, and other criminal activity over a period of more than a decade and a half. Instead of the UN scrambling to make things right, it responded in every case by attacking the whistleblower instead of crimes, abuse, and the people behind the problems. Each of us faced retaliation for reporting the wrongdoing. The whistleblowers continue. Our cases are well known and sadly deter others from reporting wrongdoing. This must change. Unfortunately, our humanity, despite threats from Congress to cut funding and increasingly widespread media attention, nothing has changed, as the book documents extensively. Whereas realization that something was very wrong at the UN began while she was serving at UN Habitat as an editor for various publications, including the important State of the World Cities. report her troubles began in 2009 when she traveled to Bahrain with Anna Tibajuka, hope I pronounced her name correctly, the executive director of the UN Habitat Agency that focuses on promoting sustainable cities. During the visit, Rara explained some Bahrain officials asked how their money was being used. The executive director did not provide an adequate response, and thinking that perhaps that she had not been briefed about it. I made my own inquiries when I returned to Nairobi, that's in Kenya, explained Wara, a Kenyan of Indian heritage. I discovered that at least $350,000 of the $1 million donation Bahrain had made to UN Habitat could not be accounted for. When I asked my supervisors if they knew where that money went, they descended on me like a ton of bricks, even threatened not to talk to me anymore. At that time, Wara realized that the money had probably been used on personal projects or maybe even divert to individuals within the organization. I am in an interesting turn of events. Wara later concluded that the monarchy of Bahrain did not even really care if its money has been used properly. Instead, it seemed that the regime was involved in a sort of tit-for-tat agreement. In 2007, the Prime Minister of Bahrain, Shakir Khalifa, had been awarded the UN Habitat Scroll on Honor Award for his outstanding effort in raising the living standards with Bahrainese. Wara added in an email about her experience, this was just before Bahrain experienced in its own Arab Spring when the monarchy's legitimacy was being questioned. The huge donation to UN Habitat was probably how Bahrain's monarchy bought international legitimacy through the UN. That sounds like a great bribe. Do you agree on that, huh? Around that time, Rora had already started questioning some of the alleged statistics used in the State of World Cities report were actually being computed. Many UN agencies deliberately exaggerate the scale of a problem or decimate statistics that are not based on any scientific survey or research. She wrote in the book. Many also manufacture data, she added, because that is how they remain relevant. How they push their agenda on an international stage, and how they attract donor taxpayer funding. Sometimes UN officials and other international bureaucracies make numbers and lie to coerce governments into changing policies, she explained. The book cites a number of examples of cooked up numbers to justify bigger budgets, more power and prestige, and various policy prescriptions. Some of the alleged famines in Somalia, for example, appear to have been concocted by UN bureaucrats.
Here you go. Podcast on?
Yeah.
Oh, you had a phone on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, buddy. Yep, it's a live feed, so he knows I'm on, so that's okay. All right. What it says here. Okay. I'll go back here because sometimes UN officials and other bureaucracies make up numbers and lie to coerce governments into changing policies, she explained. The book cites a number of examples of cooked up numbers to justify bigger budgets, more power and prestige, and various policy prescriptions. Some alleged famines in Somalia, for example, appear to have been concocted by UN bureaucrats by simply inventing or messaging statistics. Clueless journalists then parrot the invented UN numbers as a part of a process that Rora referred to as a CNN effect. Rora considers it a crime akin to plagiarism that should be severely punished. When a UN agency pushes inaccurate, misleading, or scientific statistics, it is even more unforgivable because the world's government, i.e. members of the member states of the UN, rely on those statistics to determine their national policies, priorities, and programs. She continued, adding that millions of people's lives can be affected by a single misleading or erroneous statistic. In particular, during her stint editing the UN World Cities Report, she was concerned about Gini coefficient numbers used for cities, which seek to measure income inequality. She tried to figure out how these were being arrived at. Unsurprisingly, her superiors at the UN office were not pleased with the curiosity and additional scrutiny, Rohrer explained. My questioning resulted in several acts of retaliation, including public humiliation at office meetings, threats of non-renewal of contract, intimidating questioning during an interview for a post I had applied for, and petty revenges, like forcing me to share my office with visiting consultants, even though I had made it clear that as an editor of this important report, I need privacy and silence to carry out my work. She explained in an email. I left to organize soon after due to frustration in the sense that my supervisors were hell-bent on making my life miserable. In response to retaliation, Borough filed an official complaint at the UN Ethics Office, which is supposed to investigate claims and provide relief to whistleblowers. The office claimed that while there was evidence of wrongdoing at UN Habitat, they could not establish whether I had experienced any retaliation. Rohrer said, adding that determining whether retaliation took place is key to getting justice from the UN's internal system. The book also contains a very informative introduction by Patrice Edwards, the International Program Director at the Whistleblower Advocacy Group Government Accountability Project. Despite her general acceptance of the UN line regarding why it was founded and its alleged humanitarian purposes, Edwards highlights a number of extreme serious issues. Among those is the fact that UN personnel enjoy immunity from national and local laws, leading to a lack of accountability that produces losses and impunity. She also blasts the UN's supposed internal system of justice as subject to manipulation, calling its setup increasingly opaque and arbitrary. So it's like, see, I know I've been hearing like they want to get involved in these war crimes in the United States and so forth, and I'm not gonna criticize that. However, that same entity think they're above everybody else. And this is why I don't like the United Nations. I am not too fond of this prestige organization because they're nothing more than New World Order, another New World Order establishment. Plain and simple. But I will proceed here. And indeed, as the book shows, the UN's procedural justice system is almost tragically discredited and totally undeserving of the term justice. According to the book, only between 3% and 4% of whistleblowers who sought assistance from the UN Ethics Office had a retaliation against them substantiated by ethics people. That means a stunning 96% or more of whistleblowers who reported being persecuted for blowing the whistle, and the UN received no relief. Imagine being a UN worker who observed criminality and thinking about those odds. Of course, most people would simply choose to stay silent rather than jeopardize their career and livelihood for such meager odds. And so, with potential whistleblowers terrorizing into submission the widespread corruption, criminality, and other horrors that plague the UN go unreported. The UN knows that too, as it acknowledges in its report about the drastic underreporting of sexual exploitation and abuse of women and children by its scandal-plagued peace troops. Where Rera tried to blow the whistle and seek relief, she witnessed the failures firsthand. Since the Ethics Office could not determine retaliation, it could not make the case forward. One moment here. Sorry about that. All right, I'm just trying to do a couple things. Beat it. All right, good. All right. Imagine a UN work. Okay. Whoop. Sorry about that. When Wera tried to blow the whistle to seek relief, she witnessed their failures firsthand. Since the ethics office could not determine retaliation, I could not take my case forward, she explained. Later, I realized that the ethics office proved retaliation in about 98% of the whistleblower cases it received, which suggests that it protects senior UN management rather than UN whistleblowers. Numerous UN whistleblowers who have spoken to this magazine in recent years have made the same exact charge, and the UN has done little to dispel that notion. The UN's culture of impunity ensures that those who do not rock the boat with uncomfortable truths get promoted, while those who dare to speak out are castigated, ignored, demoted, or fired, wrote Wera in their book. It sounds like saying if you're a bend over Bob, Uncle Tom, and Aunt Jemima to them, you get pat in the head like good boy, good girl. Exactly. See, that's how I see it. All right. This is especially true in cases where the perpetrators of crimes are from powerful or influential countries that exert political pressure to ensure that their national cases are not brought forward or are buried. Think about the implications of that. In the case of Danish UN diplomat Paul Bang-Jensen, who blew the whistle on deliberate sabotage of a UN probe in Soviet atrocities in Hungary and tried to protect the identity of witnesses to protect them and their families from torture and murder. The saga ended with his suspicion suicide. His death came after he had told his wife and others not to believe any claims that he would commit suicide. The New American Magazine will publish an in-depth story on Bang-Jensen in the coming weeks. There is so much to learn from the UNsilenced book. For instance, Wera describes her international aid outfits in huge quantities, tax-funded food supplies right around harvest time, flooding the market with basically free food in huge quantities. This crushes prices, thereby destroying the incentive for locals to farm, while perpetuating dependence on corrupt agencies funded by Western taxpayers, in addition to ensuring budget increases for global bureaucrats. Another interesting fact brought out of the book: the British government's tax-funded propaganda arm, the BBC, has an unwritten policy that prevents the news agencies from coming down too hard on the UN or senior bureaucrats. The reason, according to an unnamed BBC journalist cited by Wera, is that exposing UN wrongdoing and crime might be perceived as anti-development. Other self-styled media organs refuse to expose UN wrongdoing because the left-wing journalists fear being associated with right-of-center individuals who want to shut down the UN. Wera herself, as a left-winger, acknowledges in UNsilenced. Some of the ideas proposed in the book to remedy the many problems include reforming the UN's internal justice system, setting up outside independent mechanisms, ensuring the protection of whistleblowers, and more. Unfortunately, though, none of those recommendations get the heart of the problem, which is that the dictator-dominated UN was flawed from the start and cannot be reformed enough to make it worth keeping. Surely, protection for whistleblowers is needed, if only to ferret out criminals and bring them to justice and to protect their victims, often children, but it will not solve the broader UN problem. If there's anything to quibble about with the book, is that it accepts as true as many of the fundamental and false premises upon which the UN was established. The idea that world peace was a goal leading UN founders was a goal of leading UN founders such as Butcher, Joseph Stalin of Moscow, and Soviet spy Al Gore Hiss of the United States, for instance. The book also occasionally treated leftist ideological claims. The idea that governments are responsible for feeding people as just one example, as if they were facts. The ideological lens, though which Wera reports, though, is easy to discern and does not interfere with or take away from excellent brave work which has done exposing the cesspool of corruption and crime. The book is well worth reading for anybody seeking information on UN corruption or prosecution of UN whistleblowers who try to do the right thing. For the sake of humanity and liberty, it needs to stop. And there's plenty of other links on here. I'm going to try to do, because even though right now it's under PDF format, but if this happens, I'll try to edit everything and put it on there so folks can really look at it. But it's from the, just type in New American. Anything I'm going to talk about, try to look it up by yourselves at your best. But yeah, I'm not surprised at all, because there's even links on here too. Because I've read some of the stuff on my past episodes about the World Bank and how and how UN prosecutors went under fire. How they rape and pillage in areas of Africa like Rwanda, Somalia, and even in Haiti. There's even reports on that. And the funny thing about the thing in Haiti, I took the initiative on looking that up like 15 years ago. That time I had web TV. It's really dangerous with the United Nations. So that's why, like I said, when it comes to government, I am not lovey-dovey. All right, my friends? And that's why I always harp it, push it, because too many people assume like the United Nations, they should be like monitoring, or Homeland Security should be monitoring the elections. Forget about it. They're a bunch of yahoos too, okay? So, but I want to try to check out that book. Go to Amazon.com or not hit your bookstores, because I would take the initiative on reading it. I recommend everyone to check it out too. It's time to spread this information. Remember, like I said before, the United Nations is part of the One World Order, New World Order network. And I learned about this almost 30 years ago, okay? So I was like, wow, time flies, A little over 30 years. So, next thing here came from Michael Snyder. And I think it's economic collapse. Yeah, it's economic collapse, if I'm correct, right? Oh, yeah. The End of American Dream, Economic Collapse blog. It says here, Trump and Clinton have both assembled an army of lawyers to file lawsuits and contest the election results. So the drama will continue after the elections, my friends, okay? So you've been forewarned, okay? And let me see here. I'm just doing a little swoop and swap here. Boop. Okay. All right, let's check it out. As it reads here, what happens when you get thousands of lawyers involved in the craziest election in modern American history? Unfortunately, we may be about to find out. We all remember the legal tug of war between Al Gore and George W. Bush in 2000, and with each passing day, it is becoming more likely that we could see something similar or even worse in 2016. In a brand new article entitled Clinton Trump Prepared for Possibility of Election Overtime, Bloomberg discusses the armies of lawyers that Clinton and Trump are both assembling for this election. It would be nice if it was the American people that actually decide the outcome of this election, but if this brings very close on November 8th, it may come down to what the courts decide. Traditionally, there's been a lot of pressure on the losing candidate to concede to the winning candidate before the election night is over. However, in recent elections, this has begun to change. I already mentioned what took place in the aftermath of the 2000 election, and in the 2004, John Kerry did not concede to George W. Bush until the next morning. And looking back at the numbers from 2012 election, it's clear that Mitt Romney should not have conceded to race Barack Obama so early. There was evidence of early election fraud in key battle states such as Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Colorado, and Virginia. And many people out there still believe that Mitt Romney would have won if the elections would have been conducted fairly. Well, when you have, I want to interject here. When you have two candidates, I call them the Goldman Sachs twin brothers, it wouldn't matter, right? But it's understandable here. So when Trump says he may not immediately concede the election if the results are tight, I think that there is wisdom in that. A couple of weeks ago, it looked like we may have had a situation where Hillary Clinton could have won by a landslide, but the FBI changed everything when they announced they were reviewing their investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails. Since that announcement, the poll numbers have been rapidly shifting, and now Trump has all the momentum. For example, the ABC News Washington Post tracking poll had Hillary Clinton up by double digits not too long ago, but is now showing a 1-point lead for Trump. The race is very close at this point, and if the race to 270 electoral votes is razor tight on election night, I don't anticipate that either candidate will be eager to concede. We could see a close, prolonged legal battle ensue, and that could mean we don't have a new president until after the election day is over. Already, both campaigns are assembling large armies of lawyers. In fact, Bloomberg is reporting that Clinton has thousands of lawyers have donated their time to her campaign. Bring out these thousands of lawyers. 1,000 lawyer march. Hallelujah, right? Clinton is assembling a voter protection program that has drawn thousands of lawyers agreeing to lend their time and expertise in battleground states. Though the campaign isn't saying exactly how many or where, it's readying election observers in Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Hampshire, Iowa, Nevada, and Arizona to assess any concerns, including the potential for voter intimidation, and to verify normal procedures. The Republican National Law Association, which trains attorneys in battleground states and in local jurisdictions where races are expected to be close, aims to assemble 1,000 lawyers ready to monitor polls and possibly challenge election results across the country. Hedge fund manager Robert Mercer, one of Trump's biggest backers, has sunk $500,000 into the group, and his biggest donation in at least 4 presidential elections, Internal Revenue Service filing shows. And most Americans didn't realize, but Reuters is reporting that the Democrats have already filed election-related lawsuits in 4 key swing states. Democratic officials sued Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump in 4 battleground states on Monday, seeking to shut down a poll-watching effort they say was designed to harass minority voters in the November 8th election. In lawsuits filed in federal courts in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Ohio, Democrats argue that Trump and the Republican Party officially were mounting a campaign of vigilante voter intimidation that violated the 1965 Voting Rights Act and an 1871 law aimed at the Ku Klux Klan. Oh yeah, and remember, Hillary Clinton gave a big hug and a kiss to Senator Dennis Byrd, who was a member of the Klan, who supported the Patriot Act and was a Democrat. Can we say hypocrisy? Yeah. The Rosie O'Donnell move, right? Only to certain areas, but at least when it comes to 9/11, I'll give her some leeway on that. At least she's just questioning, which is good. Oh, so I'm a little bit sarcastic. Meanwhile, the legal challenges for the Clinton campaign continue to mount. The reviewed investigation into Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified documents is one of the 5 FBI investigations that are currently looking into conduct the Clinton's inner circle. There are, in fact, not one but 5 separate FBI investigations which involve members of Clinton's inner circle or their closest relatives, the people at the center, or has come to be known as Clinton World. 5 known investigations are into Anthony Weiner, Huma Abedin's estranged husband, sexting a 15-year-old, the handling classified material by Clinton and her staff on her private email server. Questions over whether the Clinton Foundation was used as a front influence peddling. Whether the Virginia governor broke laws into foreign donations, and whether Hillary's campaign chairman brother did the same. Oh, of course. Absolutely. Despite everything we had already know about Clinton, about half the country still plan to vote for her. I'm trying to figure out why. If the American people willingly to choose the elect most corrupt presidential candidate in our history, it might be a sign that the events I talk about days old, during his first full day in the office if he wins the election. So it's like 777, huh? Many conservatives are fully convinced that Donald Trump's destiny to be president. Personally, I don't know what is going to happen, but with the race this close, it may be the courts end up deciding who our next president is, and that is an outcome that none of us should want to see. The verdict rapture, the rapture verdict, as they call it. Oh yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I say let the dominoes fall, my friends. Okay, and just to let folks know, it always expect a electoral college vote too. Okay, so don't even sweat it, man. And that's around. I'll be around December, and they'll do the actual electoral college vote around January 2nd. All right, so there's going to be lawsuits, but the electoral college, even though the great amount of states, they have to honor the votes by the people. I know Florida's one of them. There's state laws on that, and I did address that in some of my past episodes, and so your vote would still go to electoral college. I know I'm repeating myself, and I apologize. One thing is for sure, it's going to be one interesting event, my friends. And even the electoral college makes their decisions because still, if they violate certain state laws, okay, it's only a misdemeanor. So it's still winner take all. If the electoral college, whoever doesn't get neither candidate get 270 electoral college votes, you know what's the next step? The U.S. House of Representatives. Exactly. When they get sworn in, boom. Then it will be very interesting. So something to check out, my friends. You know, like I said, it's a lot of steps, and of course, there's going to be ways how to contact Electoral College to make it. You do your endorsement. So I'm going to look into that as well. But the truth of the matter is, like I said, I'm not respectfully, I'm not too crazy with some of the folks, you know, like with either candidates. I say that respectfully. However, the mainstream media is actually really love witch hunting Donald Trump. But now it looks like some of the people in those mainstream medias are calling out Hillary Clinton, which is about time. It looks like they may be desperately seeking ratings. But one friend told me if they would have had better ratings if they would have been more like watchdogs instead of prostitutes. And that is a fact. So the truth of the matter is, just pay attention, keep your poise, my friends. And remember, we still got the 10th Amendment. So don't worry. All right? Okay. Next one here. Came from Florida today. Came out a little bit. And about the elections. Hillary in Sanford. I will protect America. It's like a wet dream by Rick Neal and Carolyn Green. And she was in Sanford, which is like east of a little bit northeast of Orlando, around I-4. Hillary Clinton drew sharp contrast between herself and Republican rival Donald Trump on an array of issues, including national security and terrorism, during the Tuesday night rally in Sanford. I don't know what happened. Not far from here at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. I was in New York City on 9/11, as one of the two senators, Clinton said. So, I will defeat ISIS. I will protect America, she said, drawing cheers from a jam-packed Sanford Civic Center crowd. I have a feeling they probably bust them in. Democratic presidential candidate traveled Tuesday to the central Florida city during the middle of the stop to the three-site of the tour. The tour of the Clinton spoke on stage, flanked by two large vertical blue banners bearing the slogan "Stronger Together." Cheering attendees waved blue signs: H for Hispanic, students for H, Hispanics for H, students for H, millennials for H, and so on. During her roughly 34-minute speech, she pledged to combat gun violence and supported raising the minimum wage, guaranteeing equal pay for women, and offering free public college tuition for families earning less than $125,000 a year. Oh, good grief. Yeah, like, where's my genie bottle, right? Clinton criticized Trump on a variety of fronts, including Trump's refusal to release his tax returns, the $900 million plus business loss he reportedly claimed in 1995, a move that led him avoiding paying federal income taxes for 18 years. He took everything our great country has to offer. He scooped up with both hands, then paid nothing to supporters, Clinton said. What a two-faced witch. Man, that woman's like blasphemy. If I've ever seen her speak, I probably had to have a candle so I could have to smell her excreted odor, okay? And then he has the nerve to call a military disaster, insult POWs, and he doesn't pay a penny to support the people who put on uniform the United States of America, she said. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Hitlery. Stop using our military as an empire, okay, you pathetic wench. Clinton did not mention in the renewed scrutiny of her use of a private email server as a Secretary of State last week in the letters to members of before the rally, many attendees to members of Congress, okay. Before the rally, many attendees cooled themselves with a handheld cardboard fan while standing in line outside of the afternoon sunshine. Occasional chants arose, Hillary, and when they go low, we go high. Who let the cows out, right? Vendors sold Clinton campaign buttons, caps, and t-shirts bearing slogans like I'm with her and Hillary 2016, featuring the candidate striking a Rosie the Riveter pose. How degrading that is, I would say. Karen Weedigan traveled from Tudorville to Sanford to listen to Hillary Clinton's speech. The retired teacher supports Clinton's position on NASA, the space industry, and the environment, and among other topics. She worked all of her adult life for children education, and the list goes on and on. Weedigan said while standing at the entry line, "Can you explain to me how she took care of the children in Libya and Waco? Stop lying. Stop listening to that garbage, all right? A bunch of brainwashed fools out there. I supported her in 2008 and voted for her husband both times, and I used to be a Republican," she said. Yeah, well, remember, elephants and asses are screwing the masses, right? Why did Weedigan switch political parties? George Bush, she replied. Now, he sucked too, I understand that. Hunter's Creek Systems Administrator Richard Hall said considers Trump unacceptable. He's totally unqualified into so many aspects: temperament, knowledge of the job, his track record in business and personal decisions. He's made a whipping. He's better at whipping up a crowd. So I give him a plus in that category. But that's about it, Hall said. All right, so it says here, it was to the Sunshine State in her native Brazil at age 8, then became a U.S. citizen at 16. Now 19, she's a freshman nursing student at Seminole State College. It took time. It's really expensive, but America gave me so much opportunity, Seltzer said, of attaining citizenship. And I don't feel as if Trump represents me. I want to find someone who's my voice. I would say Hillary. Man, you folks just want a Bush crime, someone involved with a Bush crime family. Okay? You just like pro New World Order. You rather sell your souls to leave all your security eggs and liberty eggs to one person. How pathetic. And I can say that because I followed this Trumpette for 24 years, and I am not pleased with her at all. Not because she's a woman. She hates freedom. She hates the Bill of Rights. She supports imperialism. How many of you Sputniks out there that are Hillary supporters recall when they attacked Libya, when Muammar Gaddafi died? She goes, "We came, we saw, he died." You go get that on video. That's what you want. You want a imperialist hack whose husband and daughter are members of the Council of Foreign Relations, and bends over for the banksters. like I said, I'm critical. I am critical with Trump. Okay, like I said before, but you gotta pick the continuous status quo. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Plain and simple. It's like supporting Jeb Bush. So I'll probably be there laughing. I'll go, hey, Hillary, have you still stay in touch with Kathy O'Brien? Look it up. Transformation of America, Kathy O'Brien on the Clintons. You'd be surprised. And the truth of the matter is, they did not refute it. They didn't even take her to court. Something to think about. Okay. Next one here. Came from the Miami Herald. And it says here, Florida utilities spent $43 million a case to limit a rooftop solar. Who's favor and opposes solar Amendment 1? Well, I'm against Amendment 1. Mary Eileen Kloss from the Herald Times, Tallahassee Bureau. Tallahassee, okay, it says here, lost in the tumultuous presidential election and the down ballot fears. Something big has been happening quietly in Florida this year. Electric companies have dropped $42.7 million into political campaigns. Since January 2015, $20 million of the industry's profits went to finance and promote Amendment 1, the ballot initiative that attempts to frustrate the expansion of consumer-owned rooftop solar in Florida. And another $15 million more went to the fuel campaigns of a select group of powerful legislative leaders in effort to prepare for a prolonged war against rooftop solar. Yep, they hate basic rights. That's how these asswipes think. And it says here, the bulk of the money is being used to promote Amendment 1, but if that effort fails, the industry is also investing heavily into the legislature to create favorable conditions in Florida, as utilities have in other states to push back against the proliferation of rooftop solar. In other states, that effort has included attempts to make solar less economically feasible by reducing the amount of utilities spent to reimburse customers for generating access electricity to the grid through net metering, imposing new fees of solar users, and preempting local governments for opening the door to more solar competition. Right. So what they're doing, they despise the free market. They want everything's in a form of economics called neo-mercantilism. Government, you gotta help us. If not, we'll go out of business. Help us. We're gonna throw all this money at you. Exactly. Former Florida U.S. Senator Bob Graham blasted the amendment on Tuesday as deceptive and unneeded. He warned that if the measure is approved, it will be a harmful step backwards for the state's energy future. I am discouraged as a citizen how far we have slipped and see Amendment 1 as being an accelerant that declines in solar Florida, he said during the conference call with reporters. I don't even like Bob Graham, okay, but I'll agree with him on this one. According to the Divisions of Elections report, the biggest spender on efforts is Florida Power and Light, the state's largest electric utility, which has poured $22.2 million into political campaigns this cycle, $14.2 million into state legislative campaigns, and $8 million to consumers for smart solar. The utility-backed political committee promoting the amendment on the November 8th ballot. Duke Energy, the St. Petersburg-based company in the state's second largest utility, spent $13.3 million, including $6.7 million, promoting Amendment 1. Tampa Electric Company, the third largest utility, has pumped $4.7 million into the political system, including $3.8 million for the amendment, and Gulf Power has invested $2.5 million, including $2.2 million to the political committee backing the amendment. The committee has raised more than $26 million, including $6 million from nonprofits and special interest political committees that have received substantial funding from the utility industry. By comparison, the record shows Florida's sugar industry spent $57.8 million over 20 years to dominate legislative policy. The electric utilities will have spent 3/4 of that in a single year. The candidates whose political committees benefited from the money were all Republicans. Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam, who accepted more than $381,000. Senator Bill Galvano, who got $101,000, and Senator Wilton Simpson, who received $98,000. The utility-backed political committee and its segregated spokespeople have promoted Amendment 1 as a pro-solar initiative, but rather than an open the state to more solar, and the amendment asks voters to inject new language into the Constitution that will serve as a barrier to entry for any company that attempts to compete with the utility giants in providing solar energy in Florida. Graham, a Democrat, suggested that by rejecting the amendment, voters could send a message to the legislature that they want utilities to join with solar advocates to have a constructive discussion and use the vote as a springboard for a positive, better energy future for Florida. But he warned if the amendment passes, it will discourage the expansion of Florida solar by psychologically strengthening the position before an already compliant legislative and public service commission to erect barriers to solar. The utilities argue that homeowners with solar panels still rely on the grid for electricity at night and on cloudy days, but don't compensate the utilities enough to maintain their power plants, transmission lines, and maintenance crews. The emerging argument is that the metering laws that allow homeowners to reimburse for the excess energy to their solar panels generated in tax rebates to solar customers. Sorry about that. Are unfair subsidies intended to benefit solar users and the expense of non-solar users. We are opposed to subsidies that are unfair and regressive, Rob Gold, a spokesman for Florida Power and Light, said in an email to the Herald Times. There's a difference between governmental tax break credit subsidies, such as property tax credits for solar installation, and subsidies that benefit certain customers on the backs of other customers, rebates, net metering, etc. See, like they're saying, they want to control. They want the piece of the pie. All right. Gold wouldn't say explicitly what the legislative agenda would like to impose these subsidies. In documents filed with state regulators and public statements, many officials at Florida's utilities have made it clear that they want to roll back the current net metering law as utilities have in other states. Suzanne Grant, spokeswoman for Duke Energy, said in an email that the utilities believes the current net metering policies needs updating, and we believe customers who use the power grid continuously, like solar customers, should pay for grid access, grid services, and the backup power they use. But Graham called the subsidies concept a false argument. He cited studies commissioned by regulators in states such as Nevada and Mississippi and compiled by the Brookings Institution that conclude that costs associated with more rooftop solar are generally outweighed by the benefits. The installation of solar saves customers money because it avoids having to build additional generating capacity, the cost of which in Florida not only get passed along to ratepayers once those plants are in operation. As we learned with Duke Energy of the Gulf Coast, they got paid in advance for building nuclear plants that were never constructed, Graham told reporters. Solar advocates argue that it also provides a net benefit to other utility customers because it elevates the need to fire up expensive peaker power plants when utility use is at its peak, reduces demand for energy delivered by power plants that emit carbons and offset the needs to construct new power plants. Graham said Florida should follow Georgia's lead and pass laws that make it easy for property owners to allow third parties to install solar panels on their roof, not discourage them, and then require utility companies to increase the amount of electricity they generate using solar power. He echoed the argument of the solar advocates that Amendment 1 is deceptive because it leaves the impression that solar could expand in Florida. This is deceptive, and that all the things the advocates could say could happen with this amendment can happen without this amendment. He said, you don't have a constitutional amendment to adequate regulatory power over solar. You don't have to have a constitutional amendment to have safety. According to utility industry records, the electric industry fears that a surge in rooftop solar will also reduce profits for the investor-owned utility industry, which has benefited from price competition as regulated monopoly. The longer-term threat of fully exiting from the grid or customers solely using the electric grid for backup purposes raises the potential for irreparable damages to revenue and growth prospects, wrote the Edison Electric Institute, the investor-owned utility trade group, in a 2013 report. The 2013 EEI report on disruptive challenges suggested that as prices drop for rooftop solar panels and demands increase, the electric utilities industry faces a loss of customers. As business and regulatory models which depend on a regulated monopoly face potential obsolescence, okay, and the ability of rooftop owners to generate excess power, sell it back to the grid or their neighboring properties poses the technological obsolescence of existing infrastructure. The report also compared the electricity industry's existential threats from battery storage, solar power, and distributed energy from rooftop and solar and other renewable sources to the demise of Kodak and its dependence on film cameras in the age of digital technology, or the U.S. Post Office at the threat faces from delivery companies. In an earlier 2012 presentation, the trade group warned that the industry must prepare an action plan to address the challenges. Among the suggestions was to portray the emergence of power as subsidy on solar users, as the language in Amendment 1 does. And if you go a little bit further down, there's a lot of people got money donated by these companies. Okay, and of course, Florida Democratic Party as well. So you got to look at both parties, not just one way. And of course, you got Daniel Young, Matt Gaetz, they're all getting money, absolutely. And of course, Flip Flop Rick Scott, let's get to work. PC, FPL, $10,000. Okay, so that's to give you guys an example. Well, the whole thing is I've examined the language on there. I have a sample ballot I checked out before. Hopefully I'll vote before the 8th for sure. And they're right. It's totally unmeritable, and plus it's neo-mercantilism, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why I do oppose this amendment. I do support an open free market, and to be very sincere, my friends, putting solar panels on your home is a basic right. Why need permission? Okay, yeah, if you want safety procedures and all that, I understand. That's no arguments there. So that's why you have to, like the saying, this thing here, I'm not too keen on this Florida amendment. So I do endorse no on Amendment 1, and hopefully the folks will do the rest and still push it. And I would say, hey, start putting solar in your homes. There's no crime. There's no victim. There's no crime, right? Property rights, not privileges. And that'll be one step to tell these corporations and government to stick it. All right. Okay, well, finally, it'll be short and sweet to all those attorneys out there. This is by findlaw.com. It's called The Strategist. It says here 5. Shoot. Darn it. Let me see. Hold on here. Oops, hold on here. Nope. Cancel. Stop. All right. Says here, my friend, but even genders, rule of thumb is give someone else about 3 feet of personal space or more. I agree. Generally a bit too enthusiastic. When you're relating a story or making a point, hand gestures are an important subtle way to have emphasis and inflection. But the key is being subtle. Controlled gestures can help convey the leadership and confidence, but exaggerated ones can you make look like you're overcompensating, exaggerating, or worse, not being honest. Slouching, that is a no-brainer. Slouching makes you look bored, uninterested, and lazy. It can make you disengage when you're talking to someone or slothful when you're sitting at your desk, even if you've been working 12-hour days. So sit up straight instead. Not nodding too much. You're engaged, you emphasize, you agree, and you want to let people know through your body language. Great. Nod away, but don't nod too much. It's the basic language version of saying, oh yeah, and you're so right, after every sentence. And if you over nod, you could end up looking like you're desperate for approval. That's true too. It's like apple polishing, right? Seen directly across from clients. Here's an interesting tip we picked up law firm suites. Don't sit directly across the client. When you line up head to head with your shoulders squared off the clients or whoever is sitting across from you, you're adapting a confrontational posture. Simply angling your chair a bit can avoid this, giving you more open and collaborative air. And so I gotta say, have an open position at your law firm. Post it for free, on Indeed. Yeah, so that's one thing. Even you have discussions, you don't want to get too close and all that, and not every time you be like a yes boy. That's one thing you got to do. You got to always be firm, assertive, and have your facts. Please do everything in good faith. So. That's how I observe with this. Man, you know what? And it's good. It's good for everyone, not just attorneys. So check it out, all right? All right, my friends, that is all for now. I thank everyone for listening to this show. Plus, feel free to download and share this about your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting, whatever you do, please address this with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Blunder, YouTube, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is LokiLuck and the number 3 altogether at gmail.com. All right, folks, no music because right now I am using my phone. So I'll try to make an effort to post all this stuff on my Spreaker page, okay? So that is all.